Howdy Tabletop RPG fans, thank you for supporting this channel. I'm Rangomi, Grand Poobah of Game Design, and this Review's Day topic is RPG Encounters. As long as RPG players and game masters stay safely inside published adventures and settings, they may not need to design balanced encounters for their tabletop adventures. Still, if your adventure party is larger or smaller, or your homebrew rules affect the combat balancing, many GMs and DMs will need to do some encounter design or modification. We all know that the first rule of Fight Club is that we don't talk about Fight Club. Encounter design is matching the power of the monsters to the power of the player characters, so the battle is challenging without being a total party kill or a one-shot killing the big baddie. A poorly balanced battle is boring and can take an epic adventure into the blah adventure category. Players want to be challenged, they want to use their powers and abilities of their characters, they want to battle evil, and they want to snag lots of loot. For D&D in the 1970s, we would sacrifice a small critter and choose monsters based on the blood splatter. Seriously. We counted the number of levels of player characters in any hirelings and added a similar number of hit dice and monsters. This had very little to do with abilities, equipment, spells, and it often resulted in TPKs or one-shot kills. Even through the 1980s and 1990s, there wasn't a particularly good example of RPGs with excellent rules for encounter design. It was a flaw in the system. Again, we don't talk about Fight Club. What does happen is that DMs and GMs get very good at improvising battles and after years of playing are fairly adept at winging it when it comes to encounter design. Along comes D&D 3rd edition and it has something called APL, the average player level, and CR, challenge rating, and this codified a system of balancing encounters that almost worked. It has since been used by 3.5 edition and the 1st edition of Pathfinder. Only D&D 4th edition switched to monster levels and tried to align monsters and players in a similar system. It was not received well. D&D 5th edition reverted back to CR and APL, and Pathfinder 2 edition continued the system used in its 1st edition. This idea of CR involves some simple math and systems process to build an effectively challenging encounter that players will enjoy. It turns out that all that math is tough, and many DMs and GMs were winging it. What this means is that the voodoo continued until along came some very useful websites that automated encounter building. Cobalt Fight Club was a wonderful encounter designer built as a web app by Asmore, aka Ian Tolst, and assisted by Jabber3, aka Joe Barzilai. Starting in 2015, Cobalt Fight Club became one of the premier websites to help DMs build D&D 5e encounters. It used a technique to store the data in Google spreadsheets, and that allowed users to make custom monster lists for their own purposes. This technique is something I've used when developing mobile apps for cheap clients who didn't want to pay for cloud hosting. Unfortunately, it was only a matter of time before it would become a traffic issue and need to switch over to a MySQL database on a hosted platform. That would require some server-side coding and much more effort for some software that was never generated income. They were also watching as D&D Beyond eroded their users by offering a paid version that was part of the D&D Beyond service. It would of course integrate with all the other D&D Beyond tools and have official content. I don't speculate on the final nail in the coffin for Cobalt Fight Club, but as of August 2021 it is no longer available. DMs would input data about their player characters and then choose monsters and options from a very long list. All the calculations were handled internally, and the DMs would just get a well-balanced result. Could a battle still end in a TPK or a one-shot kill? Of course. But it was a wonderful tool for new DMs who didn't have the years of experience in winging it. Because Cobalt Fight Club was open source on GitHub, many other encounter builders now exist as worthy alternatives. Goblin Fight Club is for Pathfinder 2nd edition and works just as well for that RPG. Soon after Cobalt Fight Club went down, the team, Axel and Adam at Fantasy Computer Works Limited, added Cobalt Plus Club to their other tabletop RPG apps that included a fantasy calendar, dungeon generator, and a sequencer module for Foundry VTT. Cobalt Plus Club uses a proper online database, but that means that the data isn't customizable yet. Cobalt Plus Club also will send data to the Improved Initiative website to help DMs run the encounter with their online tools. I've already mentioned that D&D Beyond has an encounter builder. However, you must belong to the website and is currently in beta as of October 2021. There are, of course, many more websites and software tools that can help with encounter design. As a game designer, I see the idea of encounter balancing to be a challenge that we have not effectively mastered. I find it more than a bit disheartening that we've resorted to software solutions for our tabletop RPGs. RPG players and game masters only need to look at the job boards for Wizards of the Coast to know that a huge part of the D&D 5.5 edition will likely have both virtual tabletop and many DM's tools when it launches in 2024. As much as I enjoy the idea of better tools, I really would like to have better RPG designs that help new DMs and GMs learn the skills necessary to overcome the steep learning curve without relying on software. This episode is brought to you by Kaboomkin, the smaller, faster, funnier RPG of cartoon, fairy tale, post-apocalypse mayhem. It's time to blow stuff up. Get it now at www.kaboomkin.com. Thank you all for watching this episode. Hit like, subscribe, or ring the bell, or Booger will get you. If you want to see more videos like this, go to hopspush.com and buy an RPG or t-shirt. Do good, annoy evil, and bye-bye.